Something wasn't right about the way she moved. "Ma'am, you need to step back from the restricted area." But the 52-year-old groundskeeper wasn't listening. She was studying the device with eyes that had seen too much, because Maria Santos wasn't just tending flowers at Preston University. And tonight, with hundreds of students in danger above a ticking clock, the truth about who she really was would emerge in the most shocking way possible. But this story starts with a woman who had spent 8 years making sure nobody would ever discover her secret. Maria Santos had been working for Preston University's groundskeeping department for 8 years. At 52, she was everything you'd want in a maintenance worker: reliable, invisible, the kind of person who kept the campus beautiful without anyone noticing. Her supervisor, Jim Martinez, had never had a problem with Maria. She arrived early, worked quietly, and maintained the campus grounds with precision that impressed even the most demanding professors. But there was something Jim didn't know about Maria, something nobody at the university knew. The reason she chose this profession wasn't to escape her past. It was to carefully, methodically hide it. And tonight, that past was about to explode into the present in the most dramatic way possible. For 8 years, Maria had been the perfect groundskeeper. But there were small things that didn't quite add up: the way she could identify structural weaknesses in buildings, how she never flinched when construction crews used heavy equipment, her uncanny ability to predict when maintenance systems would fail before they showed obvious signs, and her tools. Maria always carried equipment that went beyond standard groundskeeping protocols: electronic devices, specialized diagnostic tools, instruments that most maintenance workers had never seen. When supervisors asked about it, Maria would say, "I like to be prepared." When coworkers questioned her, she'd smile and change the subject. But the real mystery was Maria herself. She had no social media presence, no photos from her past, no stories about her previous jobs. It was as if Maria Santos had simply materialized 8 years ago, fully formed and perfectly trained. What nobody knew was that Maria Santos had served 15 years in the United States Navy. Not just any Navy position, she was an explosive ordnance disposal specialist, the elite of the elite. Navy EOD specialists aren't just sailors. They're the most advanced bomb disposal experts in the world. They undergo training that would qualify them as demolitions engineers in civilian life. Maria had completed the Naval School Explosive Ordnance Disposal, 12 months of intensive training that covered everything from underwater mines to improvised explosive devices. She could identify, analyze, and disarm any explosive device ever created: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. Maria had served in 3 different war zones over 15 years. She'd disarmed bombs under sniper fire, neutralized IEDs that would terrify civilian experts, and saved lives in conditions that most people couldn't imagine. Her hands had guided explosive devices back from the edge of detonation more times than she could count. She'd earned 2 Navy Commendation Medals, 3 Combat Action Ribbons, and the respect of every sailor she'd ever served with. So why had she left that life behind to become a university groundskeeper? The answer was buried in the worst night of her military career, a night that still haunted her dreams, the night she lost Danny Murphy. March 22, 2016, outside Kandahar. Maria's EOD team was providing support for a joint operation with Army Rangers. The mission had gone wrong from the start: intelligence failures, communication breakdowns, and then the discovery of a massive IED network. Maria found herself in a bombed-out compound with 6 active devices and time for maybe 3 safe disposals. The nearest EOD support was 60 miles away through hostile territory. For 5 hours, Maria worked miracles. She disarmed a vehicle-borne IED that would have killed dozens. She neutralized a complex booby trap that protected the compound entrance. She disabled improvised mines that could have devastated the entire operation. But then, there was the 6th device, the one protecting Danny Murphy. 22 years old, fresh out of training, a kid from Boston who joined the Navy to serve his country. Danny had been trapped by a pressure plate IED, a device so sensitive that any movement would trigger a blast. Maria worked on Danny's device for 3 hours. She traced every wire, analyzed every component, tried every technique she'd learned in 15 years of explosive ordnance disposal. As dawn broke over the Afghan mountains, the device detonated. Danny Murphy died instantly. That morning, Maria made a decision that would change her life forever. She would never again put herself in a position where she might have to choose which lives to save. When her enlistment ended 8 months later, Maria Santos disappeared from the military, and groundskeeper Maria Santos was born. That Tuesday afternoon in November started like any other. Maria had been working the late shift, maintaining the campus grounds after most students had gone home. She was tending to the flower beds near the library when she heard the commotion. Police sirens, shouting, the sound of running feet. "Maria!" called Jim Martinez, her supervisor, as he ran toward her. "There's been a bomb threat. The library's being evacuated." Maria's blood ran cold. Her hands instinctively moved to her tool belt, where she carried equipment that no groundskeeper should possess. "What kind of threat?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Someone called in a bomb, said there's a device in the library. Bomb squad's on the way." Maria looked toward the library, where students were streaming out of the building in panic. Her trained eye immediately began analyzing the structure, calculating blast patterns, assessing potential damage. "Jim," she said quietly, "I need to check something in the basement." "Maria, no. This is a job for professionals." But Maria was already moving, her 8-year cover beginning to crack under the pressure of her training. Tonight, that cover was about to be completely blown. At 6:47 p.m., the bomb squad arrived. Captain Rodriguez stepped out of the tactical vehicle, his team preparing for what they assumed would be a routine threat assessment. Maria watched from the safety perimeter, but everything about her posture had changed. She was no longer the invisible groundskeeper. She was analyzing the situation with the eyes of a 15-year EOD veteran. From her personal toolkit, the one Jim had never really examined closely, she pulled out equipment that shouldn't exist in a maintenance shed: electronic detection devices with military markings, diagnostic tools rated for explosive ordnance, instruments that gleamed under the campus security lights. "Maria, what is all that?" Jim asked, staring at the sophisticated equipment. "Just tools," Maria replied, but her voice carried an authority that Jim had never heard before. As the bomb squad prepared to enter the library, Maria was mentally preparing for something else entirely. Her military training was awakening, systems and protocols she'd kept buried for 8 years, suddenly flooding back. Threat assessment, structural analysis, explosive device identification. This wasn't going to be a routine threat. The bomb squad emerged from the library 20 minutes later with grim news. They'd found the device. Captain Rodriguez's voice was tense as he radioed for backup. "We have a confirmed explosive device in the library basement. Sophisticated construction, timer mechanism, approximately 20 pounds of high explosives." Maria stepped forward, her 8 years of careful invisibility about to end. "Captain," she said, her voice carrying across the chaos, "I need to see the device." Rodriguez turned, irritation flashing across his face. "Ma'am, this is a restricted area. Please move back to the safety perimeter." "I need to see it," Maria repeated, this time with unmistakable authority. "And you are." Maria reached into her pocket and withdrew something that made Rodriguez's expression change instantly. A military ID card, worn but unmistakable. "Petty Officer Maria Santos, United States Navy, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Specialist." Rodriguez stared at the card, then at Maria. "Your EOD? 15 years active duty, 847 devices neutralized in 3 combat zones." The number hit Rodriguez like a physical blow. 847 successful bomb disposals was a legendary achievement in the military community. Maria followed Rodriguez into the library basement. Her examination of the device was unlike anything his team had ever seen: systematic, thorough, military precise. "This isn't just a bomb," Maria said, her voice taking on an authority that filled the room. "This is a diversion device. The real threat is somewhere else." "Ma'am, how can you be certain?" "Because I've seen this exact configuration before. Kandahar, 2015. The bomber uses a visible device to draw attention while the real explosive is placed elsewhere." Maria's hands moved over the device without touching it, her eyes cataloging every detail. The timer mechanism is deliberately visible. The wiring is more complex than necessary. This is meant to be found. Rodriguez's team watched in amazement as Maria continued her analysis. The real device will be positioned to cause maximum structural damage. Given the library's layout, that means the main support beam in the east wing. How could you possibly know that? Maria looked up at Rodriguez. Because that's exactly where I would place it. Rodriguez stared at Maria, processing what he'd just heard. Ma'am, you're saying you can think like the bomber. I'm saying I've disarmed devices built by the same network. This signature, this technique, I've seen it before. Rodriguez's radio crackled. Captain, we found a second device, east wing, main support beam, exactly where the groundskeeper predicted. Maria was already moving toward the second location, her 8 years of hiding completely abandoned. Maria, Jim Martinez said, following behind in amazement, You're a bomb disposal expert? I was. Now I'm a groundskeeper. But these skills, this knowledge, you're not just a maintenance worker. You're a military specialist. Maria knelt beside the second device, a much more sophisticated bomb that could have brought down the entire building. Jim, I need you to focus. This device is active. I can disarm it, but I need everyone to stay back. How can you disarm it? This is beyond anything civilians are trained for. Not beyond anything I'm trained for. Maria had opened her tactical toolkit and was preparing to work on the device, a procedure that should only be performed by certified EOD specialists. In Afghanistan, I disarmed devices twice this complex under sniper fire. This is actually easier. When the second device was safely disarmed, all 200 students who had been in the library were safe. Captain Rodriguez immediately began examining Maria's work. Who performed this disarmament? He asked, his voice filled with professional respect. Jim looked at Maria, who was quietly cleaning her hands and repacking her equipment. Maria did, Jim said, still trying to process what he'd witnessed. Rodriguez picked up one of Maria's tools, a specialized military EOD instrument. This is interesting, he said. This diagnostic approach follows military EOD protocols. The disarmament sequence is textbook naval procedures, and this technique, he paused, studying the neutralized device. This is EOD specialist level work. Maria straightened instinctively. Rodriguez looked up at her. I should recognize this. I spent 4 years as an Army EOD tech in Iraq. The recognition in his eyes was immediate and unmistakable. Petty Officer Maria Santos, the ghost of Kandahar? Maria nodded once. Sir. I heard about your work in Afghanistan. Your reputation preceded you even in Army circles. Jim's mouth fell open. You two know each other? Rodriguez turned to Jim. Your groundskeeper isn't just a maintenance worker. She's one of the most skilled bomb disposal specialists the Navy ever produced. The work she did tonight saved 200 lives that would have been lost if this building had collapsed. He turned back to Maria. The question is, why are you working as a groundskeeper instead of training other EOD specialists? Maria's answer came quietly. Because I couldn't save them all, sir. And I needed to find a place where I could focus on building instead of destroying. Later that evening, as the campus returned to normal, Jim sat with Maria in the groundskeeping office. Maria, we've worked together for 8 years. I've trusted you with every aspect of campus maintenance, and I didn't know anything about who you really are. Maria sat at her desk, staring at her hands. The person you know is who I really am, Jim. The military stuff. That's who I used to be. But these skills, this knowledge, you could be training bomb disposal teams. You could be saving lives at a much higher level. Instead, you're maintaining flower beds. I save lives right here, too. Every safety inspection I do, every hazard I identify, it all matters. But why hide it? Why not use your full potential? Maria was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. March 22nd, 2016, outside Kandahar. I had 6 active devices and time for 3 safe disposals. Jim waited. I disarmed 5 of them, but the 6th, Danny Murphy, 22 years old, Kid from Boston. He died because I couldn't work fast enough. Maria's hands were shaking slightly. That night I realized that in EOD work, you're always racing against time. There's never enough time to save everyone. Someone always gets left behind. She looked up at Jim. I swore I'd never be in that position again. Here, as a groundskeeper, I can prevent problems before they become crises. No impossible choices. No race against time. Jim reached across the desk. Maria, you can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean you should limit how many you can save. Maybe. But Danny Murphy haunts me every day. Every safe day on this campus is for him. The following week, everything changed at Preston University. Word of Maria's background had spread quietly through the law enforcement community, not as gossip, but as a sign of respect. Other veterans began coming forward. The security department had a former Marine sergeant. The engineering staff had an ex-Air Force technician. The medical center had 2 former Navy corpsmen. Maria realized she wasn't alone in carrying invisible skills and hidden trauma. Captain Rodriguez reached out to Maria with an offer. Would she consider training campus security in advanced threat assessment techniques? Think about it, he said. You could multiply your impact. Every person you train could identify threats using techniques you learned in the military. Maria was hesitant, but Jim encouraged her. He's right, Maria. You've been hiding your expertise. Maybe it's time to share it. A month later, Maria received a letter that changed everything. It was from Danny Murphy's mother. Dear Maria, it read, the Navy told me what you tried to do for my son. They also told me about the lives you've been saving since you left the service. Danny would be so proud of you. You're honoring his memory every day, and I want you to know that his sacrifice wasn't in vain if it led to you protecting all these other people. Maria wept as she read those words. 6 months after that night, Maria Santos was leading a new program called Military to Civilian Security, training campus personnel in advanced threat assessment techniques developed in military service. She still worked as a groundskeeper, but now she also taught. Every weekend, she shared her knowledge with security officers, maintenance workers, and administrative staff. These techniques, she would tell her students, were developed to save lives under the worst possible conditions. In civilian settings, they can prevent tragedies. Jim was her co-instructor, helping bridge the gap between military precision and civilian application. Maria doesn't just teach techniques, he would say. She teaches the mindset of always being prepared. The program expanded. Maria trained instructors who trained others. Her techniques spread across the state university system, then the region. Every person trained was another way of honoring Danny Murphy's memory. But the most important moment came when Maria received a call from Afghanistan. Petty Officer Santos? This is Lieutenant Johnson. You trained my EOD team in 2015. I wanted you to know. I'm back here now, saving lives, using techniques you taught me. Maria closed her eyes and smiled. The circle was complete. Every person she'd trained in the military had the potential to save others. Every person she'd taught as a civilian was extending her reach even further. Danny Murphy's death had become the foundation for a legacy of protection. Today, Maria Santos still works for Preston University's groundskeeping department. She still maintains the campus grounds, still keeps the university beautiful and safe. But she's no longer hiding who she is. Her story has inspired dozens of other veterans to use their military training in civilian life. The Military to Civilian Security program has trained over 300 campus personnel in advanced threat assessment techniques. And somewhere in Boston, Danny Murphy's mother keeps a folder of newspaper clippings about threats prevented using techniques her son died for. Maria's story teaches us something profound. Our greatest wounds can become our greatest strengths if we choose to use them in service of others. The skills forged in humanity's darkest moments can become tools of protection in everyday life. And sometimes, the most ordinary-looking people around us carry extraordinary capabilities, hidden depths of knowledge and experience that they're quietly using to make the world safer. Here at Silent Warriors, we believe these stories need to be told, not to glorify war or violence, but to honor the way people transform their trauma into purpose. Tell us in the comments, What city are you watching this video from? And have you ever encountered someone whose past surprised you, whose hidden skills emerged in a moment of crisis? If Maria's story moved you, like this video and subscribe to Silent Warriors. Turn on notifications because we share stories of real heroes and their hidden pasts every single day. Remember, there might be someone like Maria Santos in your community right now. A groundskeeper, a janitor, a maintenance worker who carries more than you know. See them, respect them, and remember that heroism often wears work clothes. Until we meet in the next Silent Warriors video, keep your eyes open for the extraordinary hiding in plain sight.